When SCP games started coming out, it was only a matter of time before children found the website. SCP Containment Breach would be released in 2012 and was quickly picked up by popular Let's Players. This new signal boost from people as big as Markiplier himself would cause an influx of new users that were not prepared for the monsters hiding within the SCP community. YouTube narrators of SCP documentation would also play a pivotal role in introducing the SCP fandom to a new and younger audience. Most of them are without blame in this. The people we discuss in this series were merely monsters hiding within this community, and today's particular monster, he doesn't get a cute little intro. As far as I can tell, the only thing they brought to the community was pain and suffering. Today we will discuss the monstrous misdeeds of sadxiao. You know what, actually, I don't even care how to pronounce your name. You don't deserve it. You get nothing.
You lose! Good day, sir!
We're just gonna call him Sax from this point forward. Now, Sax is a bit of an anomaly within the community, as he's a bit hard to pin down. He has written very little, and 2 of his articles have been subsequently nuked from orbit, the same pattern that we saw with Dr. Bright, a pattern that you should be familiar with by now if you've been keeping up with the series. The other very anomalous thing about this user is the vagueness of his ban, and what appears to be an almost deliberate cover-up. Again, a pattern that we are becoming all too familiar with. The first hints of this monster's reputation would come with a vague post of Kiwi Farms in 2019 by VDNB6, who made allusions to a known person who had been acting creepy with minors in Site 12. Now, if you don't remember, Site 12 is the adult side of SCP's internal IRC channels. Contrary to what you might think, it wasn't all smut, but yeah, there was some ERP going on in there. Much like any adult community, there are a spectrum of topics at play. So this is VDNB6's first statement about this monster. A while back, a PDF file who frequented SCP IRC chats, including several NSFW and roleplay ones, got banned. He was caught doing a lot of creepy shit to younger girls in the SCP fandom, including minors. Now, to my knowledge, a lot of people know what he did, so he probably has no hope of making a return, but here's the issue. He never got an actual disciplinary thread, despite being a longtime member of the community and a writer. The only hint of him being banned is buried in the chat ban page, where the reason is so vague that it could mean a lot of different things. And I do somewhat understand why they do this. I imagine they want to maintain their image and discourage people from reaching out to victims, but for fuck's sake, would it kill you to say that you banned a guy for being a predator? Especially when none of his pages got deleted. And newbies regularly get 15-post-long threads for giving bad critique? What a great way to give legitimate child predators a means to cover up their actions. That's a heavy post. And yeah, I gotta say, I'm feeling about the same type of way. And indeed, they make some excellent points about why it would be covered up. Now, this buried ban was hard to find, but thanks to one of our anonymous sources, we were able to find it. Sadxiao, permabanned unacceptable behaviors. There you go. Was his behavior unacceptable? Absolutely. I'd say even a little bit more than unacceptable. Deviant, even? Now, this buried ban log is interesting. First, I want you to take a look at that second section. soar.out@nd.fly, est hiding deep waters into the sun. Well, that is where a user's IRC IP goes. Smart users were told to create their own IPs in order to prevent doxing. And the second interesting thing is that last section. This last section, with the words not applicable, is normally where a link to the O5 Wiki, SCP's disciplinary forum, would normally go. Oddly, the man we absolutely know was pursuing children online and making attempts to get to them IRL doesn't have a disciplinary forum? Why did you not publicly shame the child predator, SCP admins? I'm seriously asking, why would you cover this up? Well, maybe if we get into the receipts, then we can learn a little bit more about why this was a big brain move. So here it appears that a user called Pills is calling sadxiao out for having pictures of a user who was possibly underage. So Pills says, frankly, I do not believe you. And Sue says, what benefit would I receive from having her pictures for myself? Pills says, you've clearly expressed interest in her. Sue defends himself saying, and I'll do it properly and take my time. You may call me old-fashioned. I was born and raised with traditional values, to know her as a person, and to capture the beauty of her soul, rather than the lust of the flesh. Yeah, just a traditional guy. It's all traditional. Some traditional skin crawling, that's what this is. And here we can see them attempting to rizz up what appears to be a recurring character in these leaks, Witness, or Lil Misogynist. And in the weirdest possible way, too. Also, we can see the name of 2 allegedly underage victims who have had their names redacted. So sadxiao says, I'm also blank and blanks master. What else do you do? Admittedly, I'm not a fan of mpreg, but that can't be helped. So Witness says, well, I draw a lot and play video games. To state it broadly is kind of dull, but I do a lot of stuff each day. SUIAO says, I've seen your art for myself, and color me impressed. Is also an old boy at 25, hopes that he'll be easy to approach and talk to. Here we get some creepy asterisks right there. Witness says, thank you. And you will be. I'm good friends with a ton of people in the community. And then we jump to another DM. Catch a fly. You're pretty fly. Can I catch you? I'm not okay with that. Hey, you know what? Good for you. Telling the sex pest off. Sadxiao says, I kid. Flies are kind of gross, though. Has accidentally ingested one before. You eat insects? You don't say. And here we can see some redacted conversation with what appears to be a member of staff. If I had to guess, this appears to be Yossi. Or Yossi, who cares? They're all ineffectual, aren't they? The other user is Pills. Yossi says, it isn't an isolated incident, this creepiness with younger people, and through his repeated creepiness, has made its way to another person who's decided to take official action. Pills says that's... Yossi, this is gathered storm. Adden will go forward regardless of your involvement. This will also most likely include redacted in some way, if not directly. Bill says, yeah, that of course is a different situation. Yossi says, a different situation with the same circumstances. Bill says, in case it might be of use, he randomly asked someone in SCPD about their age. I didn't read the conversation, though, so I don't really know the context. Yossi says, I saw that. Pill says, as for redacted, yeah, I don't know. Yossi, I believe that your PMs could help the situation, at least with banning sacs and whatnot. If you still don't want to share them for whatever reason, then I understand. There's no obligation to, and I will respect your decision regardless. Now, at the very least, we can see that when this came to light, action seemed to be swift-moving. Pills conversing with sadxiao near the middle of December, and a member of staff contacting that same member in early January. Congrats, SCP. You brought your response time on sex pests down from 14 years to 2 weeks. Although, oddly, I feel no impulse to applaud that turnaround time. An unburied official ban log would later be released by Solus Singularity as a member of the anti-harassment team a few days later, though their same cryptic and vague description would continue. User Sax or sadxiao or biao has been permanently banned for an off-site harassment case. And I think it should be noted that off-site harassment, what a terribly vague term. That could be anything from being mean to somebody on Twitter to like exactly what this guy did. Let me tell you a little story, SCP. We had a member, he wrote a saga, he ingratiated himself into the community. He turned out to be a creep and sent some pictures of himself sitting on the toilet to God knows how many people, but I came into possession of them. And you know what I did? I put them on the video. The stories that he wrote, here with the pictures. And if he was going after kids, you better believe that would have gone right to the feds. So what possesses you to continue sitting on your hands?
What are you doing?
Me? Just hanging around.
Pills would later comment on Reddit about the intimate side of SCP culture in a Reddit comment. Anyone associated with Mainsite can tell you that the NSFW subculture of SCP is massive. They have several dedicated IRC channels which vary in privacy but are generally open for everyone over the age of 18. The regulars of these channels are the most highly esteemed authors and site members. Examples are Bright/Duckman, Cyan Truce, sadxiao, and many more. Sadly, I never got a full list of names. Anyhow, staff permits and in some cases, like Bright, indulges in that culture. If you pay closer attention to Mainsite, then you'll quickly know that mental issues run rampant, especially among the younger community members. Some folks like to take advantage of that and invite any newly turned 18-year-old girls into their domains. Witness got involved with an author named Cyan Truce even before she turned 18, and Cyan was completely aware of that. As their relationship developed, he started to maltreat and harass the girl to the point that she started drinking heavily, and if memory serves, she contemplated hanging up. After Cyan tried to maltreat her intimately with a friend, she reported him to staff, and as it turns out, staff was very much in the know of Cyan's maltreating track record. Allegedly, one of the moderators was even a prior victim. This whole situation went back and forth, and eventually staff settled with banning both, temporarily, with a chance to appeal. Here, you can read up on him if you want. And Cyril is Cyan, and he's been banned for minor but long-term interpersonal issues with other users. You know, it is kind of amazing how they stuffed the word minor in there, but didn't mention it as the users that he was interacting with. Way to toe the line. And then there's some dead links. Cyan Truce has since reached out to me to clarify the situation, but frankly, I don't entirely believe him. The picture he paints, though, is not pretty in any case. Related to this whole debacle, Kinch the Knife Blade has started making social media posts warning people about Cyan, but she got banned for it. For harassment, according to staff. About a week later, she got unbanned because apparently the entire anti-harassment team didn't know anything surrounding the situation with Cyan Truce. Following that, they made the addendum to Cyan's disciplinary thread. Someone who has been staff until very recently is sadxiao. He was a member of the critique team and generally lurked in public IRC channels. Shortly after Cyan Truce got thrown out, the aforementioned victim got hit on by that guy, and she told him to stop. He insisted and continued to harass her, so she went ahead and reported him to Mainsite staff. As it then turned out, XIAO had been known for harassing younger girls before, some of them underage, but no measures had been taken against him, for some reason. I myself was unfortunate enough to converse with him because he's been making moves on a friend of mine. For the purposes of privacy, I won't be posting the whole conversation. And then here we have a dead Imager link, which, might have just died on accident, or it might have been ripped down on purpose by certain people. And given the history of the last few videos and what we've seen, I think you're capable of drawing your own conclusions here, as am I. So Pills continues saying, some months following that trouble, he tried to join into RPC, a rivaling creative writing wiki, but got promptly kicked out for his known history. Nonetheless, he shared some new information. And again, dead link. Now, we have just witnessed a lot laid out in this Reddit post. We see Cyan's name dropped and allegations against him. I will ask you to reserve your opinions for a later piece involving this individual, as they were, again, one of the people who broke all of this open, and they paint a broader picture that we will dive into later. We also see Pills admitting that Shaksh was a member of staff on the critique team. Oh wow. Another member of staff who had been known to be harassing people online, not getting kicked out the door right away. Who could have seen that one coming? Imagine my surprise. We also have a bunch of dead archive links, once again proving that Kiwi Farms is better at archiving this stuff than the people who are meant to protect their own community. SCP really just can't stop taking L's, can they? We also get a major bomb drop that Witness/Little Misogynist was also a victim in all of this, and appears to have suffered extensively from it. Again, I'm wondering, since Sax was fully doxxed and actually seeking out underage users, why did the SCP staff not hand evidence over to the local or federal authorities in Canada against him? For a group of people LARPing as shadow government vigilantes? Yeah, they sure suck at getting anything done in the real world. Don't want to hand over that evidence and have your precious Wiki's name dragged through the mud? Fuck the victims. The Wiki's what's important. Can you imagine a world without SCP? Oh, it would be like the sun had extinguished.
Do you really want to live in a world without Coca-Cola?
Which brings us to another serious topic of this video. While our pests in question are relatively little known, we've had an anonymous source pop up, and for the sake of keeping her anonymity safe, we'll just call them A. And yes, they were one of the many victims of Shax and another user that we have little info on called Salvage Bar. By her accounting, she joined the Foundation in prepubescence, and her story somewhat mirrors that of Insurgency Moon from the Gabriel Jade video. She had not had a great home life, socially isolated, looking for an escape, and SCP granted her just that. In order to enter SCP, she did lie about her age, LARPing as an 18-year-old. This would cause her to be able to access Site 12. Where ERP and conversations of BDSM were abound. Naturally, as any isolated prepubescent, she sought validation from her peers and heroes, Dr. Bright being among the cast of characters listed. In her own words, this validation became an addiction for her, and she fell into this group and was, to put it not so gently, passed around. Engaging in ERP with users in an attempt to feel validated and useful. She went on to state that this had damaging ramifications on her mental health and her ability to feel alive outside of these circles, stating it sometimes felt hard to get out of bed with that sort of input absent. She, like so many others who were groomed in SCP, joined FetLife and eventually found herself on even darker corners of the internet. According to her, Shax and Salvage Bar were some of the largest offenders of targeting minors. In fact, going as far as wanting to seek them out IRL and impregnate them. That's right, both of them wanted to impregnate minors. What is it with degenerates and their impregnation fixation? Why must you spread your fetid seed? Now, the most damning information relevant to this situation is that her age was allegedly known by higher-ups and suspected by SCP staff. Yet, by all accounts, they did nothing to remove her from the situation. In fact, thanks to her, we now know that several big names were in Site-12 and were very aware of what was going on. Moderators of note on the Site-12 server include huge names from the anti-harassment team like Dexanote and Lily and Solar Singularity, who we've seen a few times before. To this very day, she says that her being active in this part of the community, which was accessible and known through the main site IRC, has adversely affected her psychology. Now, I have confirmed the identity of A, and I do consider her claims credible. I have seen over the course of the last 2 episodes, and this one, that staff drags their feet and hides the details of anything going on that makes them look bad. We can see this concept of mentally ill users being lured into cliques and corners, but what if I were to tell you that this addiction did not just extend to the BDSM and smut side of SCP? What if I told you that this addiction trend exists within just normal main site people, as they desperately scramble for their articles to be liked by big names? Cyantrus would release a PDF file from a user where they go on to say the following, and I do mean an actual PDF file this time. The community created an obsession for me. Even after the public humiliation, I obsessively checked it and still wanted to write it. I wrote material I found good, and many in the community found it good. I have one 100-plus article, and many that are around 50-plus, and I made friends. By about 2019, I began to drift away, but by that time, I had multiple mental breakdowns either related to the site or contributed to by the site. I felt disliked and hated by everyone in the community. I was mildly successful, and I felt like most people, taking aside the xenomorph incident, respected me. But I was never going to be a DJ Cactus figure, and yeah, maybe that's a good thing, honestly. I would always be small fry. It ate at me inside, which contributed to a bit of an inferiority complex. Many of my articles were small things. While well-liked, they had very little love from the wider community. I don't want to sound like I'm bitching, but it is how I felt. Nowadays, I realize it was pretty stupid, but back then I wanted people to respect me, to like me, to think of me as being an important member in the community. Mark Fisher, a socialist theorist who tragically ended his own life in January of 2017, stated the following that sticks with me today. It goes without saying that all mental illnesses are neurologically instantiated, but this says nothing about their causation. If it is true, for instance, that depression is constituted by low serotonin levels, what still needs to be explained is why particular individuals have low levels of serotonin. This requires a social and political explanation, and this is what happened with me. I internalized the depression within me, that the problem wasn't me, that the depression was entirely biological, with no social reason for existing. It definitely wasn't anything else. It definitely wasn't the SCP community. It isn't my own personal life, or my role within it, or lack thereof, or even the nature of our entire society, but it is strictly my own fault. And it ate away at me. I deleted my account 2 times. I thought I could get away by just shutting it all down, but yeah, I couldn't. It stuck its claws into me and wouldn't go away. I always came back. There was only one person who helped me to get away from that website, and he is my boyfriend, who I will not talk about here, but he is the most important person in my life, who helped me to get away from this horrible void that had developed within my own mind. I still struggle with depression, but it is better without dealing with a wider community where you feel like you're just another brick in the wall. End quote. This is a long document in its totality, but it seems to line up with the statement shared by some of our inside sources. SCP, for lack of a better explanation, seems to be preying on and attracting people who are not in the best headspace, and that is deeply concerning. Now, the same could be said for any social media site that exists today. Reddit and Tumblr specifically come to mind. That doesn't make it any better, however. It only highlights a true horror far scarier than any horror shown on the main SCP Wiki. The horror of parasocial relationships superseding self-care and mental health. I started this series thinking that the bad men, they were all gone. I thought it had all faded away, and maybe everything wrong with SCP was now dead and buried. But I now have many reasons to believe that this is no longer the case. I believe SCP staff actively suppress information to save face, and that behavior has not stopped. I believe the corruption runs deep, and there's no saving this monstrosity unto God that they've let fester. I'd go far as to say that the SCP Wiki itself is a psychological hazard that can hurt you in real life. I've seen now 3 times that you paragons of the community have failed to do the right thing. And thanks to more people coming forward, we have far more receipts and testimony than we expected. But even without people stepping forward, I suspected that there was corruption, and the pattern of grooming behavior had also been established. And I don't just mean the grooming of minors for pests like Sax or Bright, the grooming of people to think and act like staff, to cover up controversy for the sake of the SCP Wiki's survival. And it fucking sickens me! Look, I know I'm getting a little heated. I know this is sounding dramatic. I know this is starting to look like Charlie Day at the corkboard with all the red thread. Yeah, I know how it seems, which is why I encourage you to follow this series. We are diving into an even deeper rabbit hole that involves a name you've heard all too often in this series, and that is Cyan Truce. And we will recount the events that led them down a dark path, and their unfortunate interactions with some of the biggest power users on SCP, and hopefully then you'll understand where I'm coming from. That episode is what the last 3 episodes have really been leading up to, the tragic tale of Cyan Truce. It's not going to be fun, but do please join us in the next one, where we will discuss one of the most complicated victims / pests of the SCP Wiki, and how it ties into one of SCP's most prolific writers. It's gonna be a big one. This one, a little bit less big, but I do hope that you guys enjoyed sufficiently. And if you did, please share it around on your social media of choice. I'd also appreciate if you supported me on Patreon or YouTube memberships. Consistent money every month. It's very important, believe it or not. Most importantly, I just want to thank you for watching, especially if you've watched this far. Always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, you definitely deserve it, and I shall see you in the next one. So until then, bye-bye. Go ahead and cut them open. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine.